This is Aliens on the Commodore 64, and like the previous game, a couple of games I covered here, 1943, there was actually two versions of this game that actually came out. Now, I don't know if this version, which is by Activision, actually was ever released officially in the UK. But I do remember this being, I'm sure it was supplied on a magazine, but I can't remember which one. And it was kind of a bit of a curiosity at the time, because there was an official movie license version of the game that was released in the UK that was very much a rudimentary first-person shooter. And I will cover that one in due time. But this was very different, whereas the other game was just one type of genre. With this game, Activision actually tried to mirror scenes from the movie, and even going so far as here, where they replicate this scene from the movie, and even they take a lot of the dialogue from the movie. Obviously they don't include any of the swearing or anything like that, but they do these like cut scenes that have dialogue that's lifted straight from the movie, as I say, aside from the swear words. So I'd already played the UK version, which was nothing like this. So when I played this version, I was really surprised. I was kind of blown away, really. I mean, this had cut scenes, you know, back in the day, seeing this, it just looked like someone had taken a grab from the movie and digitized it. And here, you know, this is the bit, I guess, they're trying to replicate the moment where you see the Marines before they get on the dropship to go to LV-426, then preparing their equipment. So they even made a little mini game out of that. It's really simple and straightforward. Even if you don't know what these things are, you're always asked in the same order. So if you don't get it right the first time, just simple processes of elimination can help that. I mean, they've even sort of tried to replicate the readout screen and what have you. And again, here you can see there's more dialogue that was in the movie. And then you're on to the first level. Now, again, this is a really simple concept, but it can be quite challenging. In fact, I got caught out playing this, and again, it's another one of those I hadn't played in a few years, but I did remember what to do. And again, I was kind of really impressed with this, because essentially playing the role of the dropship pilot, and you've essentially got to keep the ship, I guess, on its predetermined flight path by flying through these rings. If you veer off, which you'll see happen to me in a minute, then you have to start it all over again. So essentially you're trying to get your way through the atmosphere, and they're trying to simulate that whole dropship moment from the movie, even down to having the whole ionization, and then, you know, the dialogue's there, rough air ahead, and then the whole thing starts shaking. And again, you know, first time I played this was really impressive. You know, you have to remember this was back in the 80s. I'd already played one version of it, which was kind of an interpretation of the movie. It had some similar elements to it, but it did take quite a lot of license, where this seemed to be a lot closer to the movie version. And this does look relatively simple at first, and it is simple at first, but then the rings start to move quite a way off the screen, and they change direction quite suddenly, and it can be a little bit tricky. Like there, you will, you know, miss one and you have to start the whole thing again, and that is one of the frustrating things that can happen, is having to repeat things over and over again. However, in this there was a password system, so once you actually completed a level, if you wrote down the password, you didn't have to play that level again. So that was quite a bit of innovation really for the time. Bearing in mind this is again I think it was probably came out maybe 86, 87, 88 maybe. Having a password system on a Commodore 64 game, they weren't overly common most of the time because games used a multi-load, and therefore password protecting, or not password protection, but having a password in a game would have meant messing around with the cassette. Not so bad on disc, but on cassette it would have been quite difficult. Now when I first played this years and years ago, I remember struggling on this section for a long time, and I did start to get quite frustrated with it because I wanted to see the rest of the game. This was just the first level, and it is a similar piece of gameplay that I think Activision have used before in some other 8-bit games. In fact, some people will probably liken this to the infamous flying through the rings on Superman 64, something that I was thankfully spared the pain of having to play through. But yeah, it's quite bizarre. It's quite funny how those sorts of gameplay mechanics survived all of those years later. Although I have to say this, playing this through now, I can't imagine being anywhere near as frustrating as that, because you're not on a timer or anything like that. You just perpetually flying through it. You have no speed control. You're essentially just rotating or moving the ship left, right, up and down to get through each one of the rings and then get to your destination, like here. So when you see the final approach come in, that's when you really don't want to mess up, because it's actually quite straightforward at that point. And you come in and land at the colony, and again I thought kind of impressive really, given the limitations of the hardware. And now the game really gets underway, and this is probably my favourite bit of the game. And again, you have a bit more from the movie here, where the Marines first encounter the aliens and things go quite horrifically wrong. Again, bit of dialogue from the movie, and then once it's loaded in, and here you are, you have control of 4 Marines, and you can see already Drake's inside the alien nest. Now you need to get into the alien nest to make your way to the APC. That's the objective here. And when it starts flashing like that, if you hit the appropriate function key, so in this case it's Dietrich, you get attacked by the aliens and you can shoot them. Now whichever direction you face, you'll notice there's a different amount of aliens showing on the motion tracker. If you face a direction and there are no aliens in that direction, you can actually escape down the corridor, or you can just stay and fight them off until they're all dead. And when they're all dead, the little red flashing thing will stop like that and go back to static, and then you can just press one of the function keys. Now here I linked up with another Marine, and this is a pretty good tactic to have, to get as many together as you can, because if you do that, whenever you come under attack, you see you can get multiple times where one Marine will be under attack and another at the same time, and if you don't get to them quick enough, they become immobilized for a period of time. Now while they're immobilized, you can rescue them and by getting another Marine there, but if you don't know where they are and it happens early on like this, that can be quite difficult. So you saw there, I was able to get away from that alien. And when you have a couple of Marines together, like I say, when that happens, it doesn't matter which function key, you go into that same place, so it makes it easier to manage. And even if they do get separated and one of them gets pinned, they're only one screen over, so it's relatively easy to keep them together. So depending on how lucky or unlucky you are with the positioning of the Marines at the start of this, sometimes it's actually quite easy to get to the APC, and sometimes it can actually take quite a while because it is quite a labyrinth type maze. Obviously it's supposed to be the reactor from the movie. As you can see here now, Dietrich is under attack again. I don't know if it's me or whether it's actually a mechanic with the game, but it always seemed to me that when you're in the nest, the aliens attack faster. Also, when you're in the nest, the aliens can come out of the walls. So here the aliens can only attack down the corridors. Now if you're in the place where you're in the nest, they can actually come through the wall. So you can be attacked from all directions, even if there's no corridor there. So yeah, that's pretty much what I'm doing here, is just trying to get the Marines to survive to the APC. The more that survive, the more it makes the next level easier. The lives carry over to the next level, and believe me, the next level can be ridiculously hard, as you'll see when I get there. I could do it, was able to do it a long time ago, but there we go. So Frost is now at the APC, so that's one down. So I only have to worry about 2 sets of Marines now, because 2 of them are together, so I can leave them and I focus more on Dietrich, because it made sense, because she's the one that's isolated by herself. The other 2 are together, so she's going to be more at risk. While you're in control and you come under attack, it makes life a lot easier. Graphically, I was kind of impressed with this. It sort of gave the atmosphere of the movie really well, and the sound as well. Although it doesn't use any speech, I think that the sound they use for the aliens is as good as they can without using any kind of sampling. You know, it does its job. It kind of sounds like a Commodore 64 sound effect version. Obviously the guns don't sound like pulse rifles. Again, they would have had to sample that. And but you know, it's functional, but it's pretty good. The only bit I didn't really like was the music that was playing in the dropship bit. It seemed more like it belonged in a game like California Games or something than Aliens. The main title music was sort of suitably atmospheric, but then you go to this sort of, I say, sounds like California Games. It belongs in California Games on the Commodore 64 rather than Aliens. So it's kind of like that. And I say the graphics, they're not amazing, but they're functional and they do the job. And I kind of like how you have the motion tracker, and then you also have the readouts that was in the APC along the bottom. And although your gameplay area is confined to that window, it doesn't really affect the game as such. It's not. It doesn't have an adverse effect on the actual gameplay. So it's not really an issue. There was never a part where I thought this would be easier if the screen was bigger, or I felt I was missing out on any information because the screen was bigger. For the purposes of this level, it works out very, very well. So now I've actually got the 3 Marines together here. So because of that, I can just move them up like this. Now, I somehow always used to manage to lose Drake. I don't know why, but he always seemed to be the one Marine, if I was going to lose one, would be Drake, and it would always be early on, because usually he starts in the alien nest, and this time around the game was quite generous to me. I mean, the starting location for Drake, and I think Crow was the other one. Yeah. Was actually quite close to the APC to begin with, so it can be a bit arbitrary. So yeah, so far so good. And now on to the utter horror show that is the next level. So we remember the scene in the movie where the aliens attack, they cut the power in the attack, and they're in the sort of operations slash medical facility, and it's where Hudson has his last stand. So this is basically it. You're armed with a flamethrower. Now, the thing you have to do here is keep the aliens from getting past you. You can see the guys in the corridor there, that's the lives. Now, if you lose a couple of lives, you don't have as many people between the end of the corridor and the door. And you see they're completely screwed up. 2 got past, so they carry off 2 of the Marines because they're apparently incapable of defending themselves. Towards the bottom left, you'll see the flashing thing and a line on that door. So that's where they're trying to cut through the door. So the objective is basically to keep the aliens at bay until the door is open. Now, the tactic you really need to do is try to keep just pushing the aliens back while they're moving slower, because they start to go into warp speed. The more you kill them, the more come on and the faster they get, and it becomes difficult. Sometimes as well, you just end up in an impossible position where they're going to get past you no matter what you do, because they really do start to move at ridiculously high speed. And sometimes you think you've made it to push them back with the flamethrower thing, and I got caught in 2 minds there, and that was where the catastrophe of this go went. But they still go past, so this is not my favourite. I've always found it kind of really frustrating once there was no chance I had of getting that one, and that's it, it's game over, because he's got the guy who was cutting through the door there. So you can replay it. You hit run, stop and restore, you can replay it. This obviously wasn't in the movie, so I try again, and there you go, I made a complete cock up right from the word go, because I hit that alien with the flamethrower, and that just, see, immediately the one that replaces it is much faster. Now, as you push them back, they build up a resistance and they don't go back as far. So you really need to try to do this bit for as long as possible, because once you don't, that's when it starts to go wrong. And as they igniting that one, see, that one just went right past. It's kind of like a weird little tower defense type of thing, I guess, but I was never keen on this level, just because I thought it could get ridiculous. Once you really do start to get on the back foot with this, it's really hard to recover. In fact, I'd go so far as to say it's now an impossible. Like, there's no way. If one of them's running at that speed and you're not within a couple of squares of them, you've got no chance. And yeah, it just starts to get more and more hectic, and the sound as well that's playing sort of adds to the tension too. But yeah, this was probably about, well, this was as far as I got. It just got too ridiculous, and obviously I need more practice, because I could do this. I could actually finish the whole game, but yeah, it got too hard. So anyway, this is Aliens by Activision on the Commodore 64. It's a really good game. I enjoyed playing it, even though I was completely rubbish at this section. So yeah, I think it's worth checking out. Pretty good movie conversion, and all said and done. So thanks for watching.